The Swiss Family Robinson, Chapter 27, More Improvements. Whilst this work was in progress, we were not unmindful of the necessity for completing our winter residence before the return of the next rainy season. Much of our time was occupied in reaping, planting, looking after our various colonies of livestock, and in gathering in the abundance of necessary stores. But for 2 months, we worked steadily, some part of each day, on our grotto, in order to complete it, and to put the rooms and stalls for the animals in comfortable order. During the next long rainy season, when our other work would be at a standstill, we intended to carry out many minor details for the establishment of our abode. We leveled the floors first with clay, then spread gravel mixed with gypsum and water over that, producing a firm and smooth surface, like concrete. But I was ambitious to provide some European luxuries as part of our domestic furnishings. Amongst other things, to have 1 or 2 carpets, and set about making a kind of felt in the following way. Spreading a large piece of sailcloth on the ground, I saturated it thoroughly with the strong liquid made of gum, the produce of certain trees, and isinglass, which we had manufactured from the sounds of several large species of fish which we had captured, and laid upon it wool and hair from the sheep and goats, which had been previously cleaned and prepared. We then rolled up the cloth and beat it well until the wool and hair compacted together. When dry, our covering for the floor was by no means to be despised, and it formed an effectual protection against damp during the rainy season. For considerable time, no event of importance occurred. Our work went on with little incident until Jack broke the monotony by presenting himself one morning after a short absence in a most deplorable condition, covered from head to foot with thick green mud. A great bundle of canes was on his back, muddy and green like himself. He had lost a shoe, and altogether he presented so ludicrous a picture of misery that we could not help laughing, though it seemed he was ready to cry. "My dear boy, what have you been doing?" I asked. "Gathering reeds," he replied, "in the marsh. I wanted to make some cages and baskets, and I saw such beauties on the edge of the marsh that I couldn't help trying to get them. I jumped from one tuft of firm earth to another quite safely till I got near the reeds, and then my foot slipped, and in I went, first up to my ankles, then up to my knees, and there I stuck. And I began to scream with all my might, but no one came to help me. At last, in my terror, I thought of the reeds. I could just reach them with my knife. So I cut down this bundle and laid it on the edge of the marshy pool to form a kind of bank. And while I rested my body upon it, I was able to set my legs free. But I left one of my shoes behind. I never had such a fright in my life as when I felt myself sinking into the marsh. I thought it was all over for me. "Thank God for such a fortunate escape, my boy," I said, "and also for giving you the courage and presence of mind to act as you did." I examined the reeds and found that I could use them for making parts of a weaving loom for my wife. By splitting 2 of the largest, I formed a frame for the warp, and the boys cut some of the more slender ones into small pieces for teeth for the comb. Their curiosity was excited, especially as I had each part carefully put away when finished. At last I told them not to be surprised if they found I made a musical instrument called a tam-tam, a kind of drum, such as the natives of the East and West Indies use, which would play a tune when their mother beat time with her foot. They knew I was in fun, but when at length the loom was finished and presented to their mother, they quickly understood its value and watched her movements with intense interest while playing the loom, as they always called it. My next work was to make a turning lathe, which quickly became a special favorite with Ernest, who acquired great dexterity in its use. For several weeks after this was finished, we employed ourselves in the interior of our grotto in preparation for winter, for we had come now to the time when any day might mark the beginning of the rainy season, and it gave necessary to gather a supply of potatoes, rice, guavas, sweet acorns, pine cones, and as many of the pineapples as were ripe enough to pluck. A quantity of seeds, both native and European, were also sown in various patches of ground, which we cleared for this purpose. To preserve the various articles in our storehouse in the rock required a larger number of vessels than that we possessed, and I broke up the tub raft which we might use the casks for the purpose of storing away our roots and dried fruit. Winter was at last ushered in by heavy clouds which spread over the horizon and were followed by pelting showers. The wind rose to a perfect hurricane and blew violently from the sea. The waves dashed in foam against the rocks, and frightful storms of thunder and lightning drove us to our shelter in the grotto. I was near the beginning of June. We had 12 weeks of bad weather before us. Notwithstanding our previous work in the cave, we still found a great deal to do to render it really comfortable. One great inconvenience arose from want of light. The cave had only 4 openings: the door, one window for our kitchen, another in the workshop, and one which lighted the sleeping chambers. When the entrance door was closed, the stables and other parts of the cave at the back were in almost total darkness. To remedy this, I fixed a tall bamboo cane firmly in the ground near the center of the cave, the upper end reaching to the roof. Jack then climbed to the top of it with a pulley and stake, which he fastened to the cleft of the rock. A long string was passed through the pulley, and to it I fastened a lamp which we had brought from the wreck. My dear wife filled it with clear oil, and as it had 4 wicks, it furnished a fair amount of light. By means of rope and pulley, we could place it in a convenient height above our heads or lower it to the table. Now that we could continue our work with ease, Ernest and Frank busied themselves in fitting shelves against the walls of our living room to hold our books. Jack helped his mother to arrange the various culinary utensils on a kind of dresser formed of planks, while Fritz assisted me in fitting up the workshop and fixing his turning lathe in its place in one corner. A carpenter's bench stood in the center, and the tools, with many other useful articles of various kinds, were hung in racks upon the walls. I was surprised to find what a number of books we had saved from the wreck: voyages and travels, natural histories, various grammars and dictionaries of foreign languages, and many other learned and interesting works. To these were added a box of mathematical and astronomical instruments, several maps and charts, and an excellent globe. Books occupied much of our time, and we all determined to improve our knowledge of English, French, and German during the 10 or 12 weeks of our imprisonment and enforced leisure. By degrees, the wind and storm subsided, the rain ceased, the sun appeared, and we were able to venture forth to look once more on nature's smiling aspect of peaceful beauty, and to observe with delight the signs of reviving vegetation.